I know what you said.
But I'm not loading.
What have you done? How am I
Oh,
supposed
I
to
don't
read
know.
this?
Yeah, I keep getting a network error.
I need an IT.
Like I'm not able to join the. Let me refresh.
It's cheat sheet.
No.
Like I do.
Are you able to join, Gio?
Are the mics on?
Yeah, the mics are on.
My ability is pretty good. But let's be real. There's
It's
no way I'm reading
loading.
that.
Here,
No,
that's a heck of a lot easier to fix.
not for me.
Yeah, no, I'm not pulling it. I'm not able to.
It's the chair then. It's
what
not
I
the
said.
person, it's the chair.
Still loading on my end too.
Yeah, and mine gave me
I
a
believe
network
I'm the
error.
one that caused this. I just don't know how
Network
to fix it.
error.
You have anybody from IT here? No? We'll just work off voice code.
We need IT in the back or in the front, please.
I'm right here.
Yeah, we're not
You're in
able
the
to
front
join.
too, huh?
Network errors.
I'll play with this.
Errors.
Mine's on.
Oh, yours is letting you join?
Oh, it doesn't say join.
Yeah, no, when I hit refresh, it just gives a network error.
I get nothing. Oh, mine
There it
goes.
is. Try it now.
Mine did, yep.
See, just when you're present.
That's it. That's
Do
it.
a fire first.
All right.
Play with it till I find it.
I want to thank everybody for coming. Today is Tuesday, November 27th, 2018. It is 4 p.m. We are in the city chambers, and I call the Fire Rescue District regular meeting to order. Those present are Commissioner Luke, Vice Mayor McDowell, Commissioner Emmerich. We have our City Attorney Slayton, City Manager Lear, Fire Chief Garrison, or not Fire Chief, Police Chief Garrison.
Uh-oh, got a war
He's
in the
fired.
back now. Lots of
You
love.
guys- Hey, I like seeing you guys hug it out back there. And then we have Fire Chief Titus.
Fire
We have Recording Secretary, Ms. Hale is here. Let's see. So a couple more reminders before we get down to business. First, please turn off all cell phones or put them on vibrate. And if anybody is wishing to put in a public record, or not a public records request, wishes to speak, please fill out the little form that is right up there. And thank you guys for bearing with me. And I thank God for these cheat sheets today. But let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Emmerich.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we move on to approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion for approval?
Second.
I have, I don't know how to read that thing. It doesn't show me nothing. It looks like Commissioner Luke and gave a motion, and then Vice Mayor McDowell seconded that motion. We have anything to the motion?
No.
No? All right, let's vote. All right, that is approved, 4-0. Moving to the consent agenda, is there anything you'd like to pull?
Yes, sir. I'd like to pull A. It's the only item on the agenda. Oh, A, I'm sorry. A and, I'm sorry, it's B.
B. Okay.
Move to approve consent agenda A.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor McDowell. Anything to the motion? Let us vote. That is approved, 4-0. On to consent agenda item B. All right, what are your questions? Oh, you want to go ahead and open this up on consent item B there?
Sure, I mean, it's the purchase of a replacement Ford F-150 for the fire department. I'm not sure what the questions are, so with that, I'll just open up to questions.
All right. How do I speak? Okay, Commissioner McDowell.
Mayor, I don't have any questions, so if somebody would like to make a motion, I'll just speak to the motion.
I'll move to accept consent agenda B.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Luke to accept and seconded by Commissioner Emmerich. Anything to the motions?
Yeah, I'd like to thank them for coming in actually with less than what was budgeted. Thank you.
Emmerich, anything to your motion? Commissioner McDowell.
Well, I'm grateful too that it came in under budget. I met with the assistant city manager and the city manager about some concerns I had regarding inconsistencies with the repair history log and also the validity of the score sheet. And it's my impression that the city manager seemed to agree with those concerns and gave me some assurances that he's going to get those concerns resolved or looked into. So because of that, I cannot be 100% sure that these vehicles need immediate replacement. Therefore, I will not be voting for this.
Okay. So let's call a vote.
You're doing good.
That is approved, 3-1 with Commissioner McDowell
Dissenting.
dissenting. We have no public comment. Commission communications, good. We'll wait for the later meeting. We'll do the same thing for administrative. We'll wait for the later meeting. And this meeting is adjourned.
Better break it.
Silencer.
You're gonna break it.
I barely did it.
It's not gonna go through the, it's gonna go through the table.
I can't help, I carry a big gun. Boom. Oh, are we on record yet? Are you ready?
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to call Road and Drainage District Governing Body meeting to order.
Mayor, I can't get in yet. Getting network error.
I'm getting the same thing.
I know they were in here working on it before the meeting started too. Yeah, it said network error again.
Oh, now you should read that.
Okay.
I don't have it's loading.
Right. Well, while that's loading, today is Tuesday, November 27, 2018. It is 4:08 p.m. We're in the city chambers. Those present, again, are Commissioner Luke, Vice Mayor McDowell, Mayor Hanks, Commissioner Emmerich. We have our city attorney, Amber Slayton, city manager, Peter Lear, and our recording secretary, Ms. Hale. We also have our chief of police is back there, Garrison. Our fire chief, Titus, was here. I'm sure he'll be right back.
Still getting a network error.
I am too.
Working on it.
But while they're working on it, we can go ahead and get started. We can always do voice votes.
You're on which
See.
one?
I don't know if we can, because she has to record.
You just let me know. Can we move forward?
Okay.
Okay. We did the pledge the last meeting, so we're going to go ahead and move on to approval of the agenda.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
I have the approval of the agenda moved by Vice Mayor McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Anything to that?
Just to double check, we are doing road and drainage, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just for clarity, that's all.
I still get network error.
Vanished now. Okay, so those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. It is passed 4-0. Do we have any public comment?
We do. Mr. English, it says the creek. Do you want to just general public comment?
Just general.
Okay. Thank you.
Congratulations, Commissioner Luke. Commissioner Emmerich, about time. Congratulations to Mayor and Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Can you please state your name for the record?
Chuck English, Northport. My issue is a lack of discussion on the action of road and drainage as it relates to the Myakkahatchee Creek and its floodplain. I don't believe that it's been brought up for discussion before the commission or any action to mitigate. I'm interested in that being addressed. Also, we've taken a group of residents, taken time to do surveys down through that area. And we've GPS, date stamped, pictured down through there and identified many protected species of flora and fauna. We're in the process now of going down south from Snowbird Waterway south. One of the interesting things that I found out during my research was that the old dump has not been addressed or tested since it was deemed stabilized 30 years ago. And that is a concern in, shall we say, a cursive review south. I've noticed several areas where the vegetation is a little bit different than it should be. And I've also asked that the number of outfalls between Snover Waterway and Cocoa Plum to be identified because there seems to be more than I remember there used to be in there. And that's it. And let's see, what else?
You got about another minute, sir.
That should about cover it. Yeah, pretty much covered it. Yeah. And I will be following through on all of these issues. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, so we're going to move on to general business. So, City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Back in July, there was a consensus for the commission to communicate with the, for staff to communicate with the Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee. We have done that, and Ms. Julie Belia will come up now and give you an update on the South Biscayne Drive Median Landscape Project and all of the fun that we've had out there that everybody's quite aware of. I just want to give you guys an update.
I just got in on the,
You able to refresh now?
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director.
One second.
Excuse me.
Which one
Sorry.
I need IT.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's
I was trying to do it without interrupting.
It's okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Belia.
Yes, sir. For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. The project before you today is the South Biscayne Drive Median Landscape Project. The background: on July the 2nd, 2018, the Commission had directed staff to communicate with the Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee to participate in the beautification of Biscayne and provide some recommendations. As everyone is aware, we were having issues with maintenance by the contractor at that time. On July 18th of 2018, the Commission requested the following information. They asked for copies of the approved landscaping plans, request to inspect and verify the trees, and the plants on the approved landscaping plans are the same as those that were planted, and provide a breakdown of the landscaping in the median and the costs. On October 17th, we presented an overview of the various issues that needed to be addressed to the Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee. We also presented at that meeting, myself and Ryan Pieper, the city's arborist, we presented to the committee the recommendations by Ms. Alicia Carty, our city's 2018 Greenest Award recipient. At the conclusion of the meeting, the Beautification and Tree Scenic Committee approved the suggestions provided by Ms. Carty regarding the maintenance as well as the plantings. In addition, part of their vote was they wanted to research some additional Florida-friendly plantings to add to the suggestions of Ms. Carty. And to date, we are still awaiting their recommendations as far as what other types of plant species they would like us to add to Ms. Carty's recommended plant species. Some of the actions taken to date, we removed, Public Works staff removed the landscaping responsibility via a change order from contract 2018-08, Landscaping and Turf Maintenance Services. The landscaping in the Biscayne median landscape beds are now being maintained internally by the Public Works Department, Operations and Maintenance staff. And we are planning on continuing to do that through the end of fiscal year 2019. On July 19th through the November 13th of 2018, staff has worked, Public Works staff, a total of 854 hours maintaining the landscaping within the landscape beds. Staff will apply selective herbicides to slow the germinations on any new invasive weed growth. The failed Sylvester palms are scheduled to be replaced with royal palms. Replacement palm trees are provided in the landscape installation contractor as part of the warranty. Actions going forward. Suggestions and recommendations made by Ms. Carty will be implemented upon the receipt of additional suggestions from the Tree and Scenic Highway Committee. We will then, at that time, once we determine what types of plants we're going to be installing, we will evaluate, the Operations and Maintenance Manager and myself, along with the city's arborist, if it would be more cost-effective to maintain the landscaping in-house or utilize contracted services. Are there any questions?
The city manager, reading some of the materials that I had requested, it appears that part of the problem is that there's drainage issues in the median, that it's kind of like collecting like a bathtub. And I was wondering if we could drill holes, weep holes in the curbing to try and get some of that water to be released, or maybe put some notches in the curbing to get some of that overflow water to come out.
I'll have the department address whether or not, how we could address the flooding issues in there.
Chuck Speak, Operations Manager, Public Works. We have tried to address the wetness of some of the beds. There are notches cut. If you go out there, there are saw cuts in the curb. We can't open too much because we'll lose material, but we have done that, yes.
Do we need to do more of those cuts then, maybe?
I don't think so. I think that the main concern with the wet beds were where the two Sylvester palms failed, and one of them failed twice, the other failed once. Putting the royal palm in there, which is a better species for a wet foot, we'll take care of that problem in those 2 medians.
And there's no other drainage problems throughout the other medians than just that one?
Not that are affecting the plants, no, or the landscape.
Okay. So for the benefit of my fellow commissioners, was a weed barrier, either a cloth barrier, put down when we started this project?
It was not,
Was not.
correct.
If I may, Vice Mayor, we had this project designed by a landscape architect, and that was not part of his design.
And if I can just throw something out there about the weed barrier. The weeds in Florida will grow almost in asphalt. So when you have 2 to 3 inches of mulch, they don't need soil. They're growing in the mulch. So the weed barrier doesn't do much. And when you plant, which is another, I won't say problem, but a maintenance issue, is when you plant so many thousands of plants on 1-foot centers, and they're small plants. So now you put thousands of holes in whatever weed barrier you may have put down. It's not effective.
Who was that landscape architect?
And that I don't know. I wasn't here for that part.
Ben? Excuse me, yes. It's Johnson Engineering out of Fort Myers? Out of Fort Myers. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. City Manager, do you know how much is in the budget now for doing restoration for Biscayne?
I do not know off the top of my head. I don't know if you all have that information.
I do not. I think and I don't know if we could use the funding from pulling it out of the contract, but there was 50,000 or so left because of the change
I
order.
thought we allocated
I
across
just wanted to
some
make
over
sure
Yes,
there.
yes,
that
ma'am.
number hadn't changed, because I did remember 50,000.
It's about
That was
50,000, yes, yes, ma'am.
Top of my head.
Yeah, no, he's correct.
Do we have an idea how much the new plants and the maintenance is going to cost based on what our Greenest Citizen and the advisory board may recommend?
No, ma'am, we have not gone out for any type of quotes or bidding process yet, because we don't have the complete list. Once we receive the list from the Beautification Council, then we will be in a position to obtain quotes. So at this time, we do not have that information.
All right. So, Mayor, I'm going to need a little bit of leeway on this. I will get to my question, I promise. I have to kind of give a little bit of background, if you would.
Please, hurry.
So we approved this contract in March of 2018 for $60,700 for this L4 of Biscayne with Wright Myers, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So then on July 27th, you sent a letter to Cure giving them 10 days to fix the problem. Then on September 4th, staff sent a follow-up letter to that 10-day cure that was over a month prior. Then on September 4th, a separate letter went out asking if the contractor wanted to remove L4 from the contract.
That's correct.
Then October 5th, the change order was made and signed by the contractor on October 12th. But the change for the contractor did not take effect until November 1st. Am I reading that timeline correctly?
Correct.
You're correct. Yes, ma'am. You're correct.
November 1st is when it stopped with the contractor for Biscayne.
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Okay. Why did it take almost 3 to 4 months from the time you did the letter of cure to the actual removal of them for L4?
Go ahead, Chuck.
The letter of cure was given. Then there was the second follow-up letter to the letter of cure was a letter of substantial improvement. Okay? They had made substantial improvement, and then we were assisting them. We're trying to get this back to a baseline. It's a complex landscape because of the landscape design.
Okay, so the substantial letter came from you guys?
Correct.
Yes.
To Wright Myers?
Correct.
Okay, that wasn't included in my correspondence request.
There should be a follow-up. Take a look here. Here.
When was that sent out, if I can?
That one was sent out on the 4th,
October 4th.
or September 4th.
Oh, okay, September 4th. yes.
September 4th, I thought that was like the follow-up to say, hey, what's going on with the letter to cure?
There was a follow-up to the letter, the notice to cure.
Notice to cure,
Right, that went out on the 4th.
correct.
And that's the one that was
You're calling it a substantial cure for baseline?
a substantial improvement, yes,
This is the
for
one
the
you want,
services.
September 4th.
That's the removal.
Okay. Right here, this one.
Yes.
It's in the packet.
Okay.
So there's two letters that are dated September 4th.
Correct.
Okay.
One of them I'm calling, and it could be as simple as what I'm calling it and what y'all are calling it.
Yes, ma'am.
To me, it starts out,
So-
basically, we're following up on our letter to cure dated July 27th.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is just basically saying, where are we in it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the-
that's not the same as a substantial improvement.
If you go down to the bottom of that page, the second line up, it says, as of August 10th, 2018, there was substantial improvement in all the deficient areas, thus fulfilling the obligations of the 10-day notice to cure.
Okay. So, it's crazy.
If I may kind of give a little bit of an overview. So it's a process you have to go through. It's not like you can just say, you have to show what the deficiencies are. So we sit down with the contractor, we sit down with the purchasing division of finance, and we all discuss it. And we tell them, these are areas of your contract you're deficient, and we are going to give you the letter, the notice to cure letter and all that, and we're going to give you a time frame in which to correct those deficiencies. So although they're doing some things better, they were not doing better on other things, such as mainly the landscape beds. The mowing is impeccable by the contractor. So, you work with them. We had, I believe, another follow-up meeting in between that, and we went over everything, and then you have letters that go back and forth till you get to the point where you need to make a decision. Is there something that we have to do to remove, either not utilize that contractor's services at all, and that would affect all of his other responsibilities within the contract areas of the city of mowing and maintenance, landscaping, or, and this is what, we have discussions on it, we have to meet with finance, we meet with the city manager, to come to the point where we want it to be fair because they are doing a great job in the mowing aspect and the other landscaping. It's just this is a lot more intense landscaping. So we came to the agreement with them, we are going to remove the Biscayne landscaping portion only of your contract. So that kind of is how it leads up to it. It's not just a matter of sending a few letters back and forth. There's meetings in between, and people have to review the documents. The change order, that has to be approved by finance, by the city manager. So it's a process you have to go through. That's why it might appear as if, why did this take 3 months? In actuality, it does. And at the same time, if we can work with them to get them to comply, we would much rather. Because otherwise, we are going to do the work in-house, and that's where we're at today.
So when you guys sent the amendment to the contract, removing L4.
Yes, ma'am.
Are they going to continue mowing? Because L4 includes the mowing.
There's no mowing in the L4 section.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the contract, and it says estimated mowing cost, South Biscayne, $34,500.
There's no mowing in the Biscayne section. It's all landscape maintenance.
Okay, so,
It's all built up down Biscayne. We don't mow in front of improved lots.
But there's the east side of mowing that's part of their scope of work, is to mow the east side of Biscayne.
They don't mow where there are improved lots. So if there are houses there, they don't mow it. If there's a business there, they don't mow it.
I'll be happy to, but I just want to finish up on this point. I will be quick. So I am looking at the scope of work, and it has mowing on it for L4. So I'll let you all
Okay.
work on that. So here's my concern with this letter to cure and the contractor being stopped working on L4 effective November 1st. Staff has been working on L4 and has over $22,000 in labor costs at the same time we're paying the contractor. So basically, the way I'm reading this is L4 had the contractor getting paid and our staff getting paid, and it still looks like crap.
L4 is a very complex landscape project. Again, we've planted thousands of plants 1 foot apart.
That was
Okay.
your landscaper designs.
That's not mine.
I-
I'm a
not
maintenance
yours,
guy.
I know.
I didn't get to look at it. Trust me, I would have come up with a different idea for that whole deal.
Thank
Grass
you.
would have been perfect for me.
So I am concerned about the double payment for maintenance costs of L4 for 4 months, July to November. That's where my concern is.
And if you remember, there were several commissioners that
Mm-hmm.
nearly demanded that we put staff on that road.
I understand that.
Okay.
But I also was expecting the contractor to be fired way before November 1st.
Again, we fired a contractor last year, and then my staff had to pick up all of the finished mowing in the city, which put us behind for months. We worked overtime every Saturday for about 6 months to keep up. We're trying to avoid that by, this contractor does a great job mowing, keep him
Right.
mowing, pull away what he can't do.
Oh, and I don't mean to fire him for the entire contract, of course not, because Wright Myers does a great job for the city mowing, but I would have expected the firing for the medians to happen much sooner than it did. So I'll release the floor at this point, but I do want to revisit my further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Lou.
In regards to the contractor, do they do anything else on Biscayne? I mean, further down or that, or no? When they were cut loose of L4, they were done with L4?
They're off of Biscayne completely.
Okay. Was there a change in price for the contract because of taking it away from them?
Yes,
Thank you.
it was reduced by the amount that's why they were broken down into the different sections, so they could be removed.
So during those months that Vice Mayor was speaking of, was there any reduction or payment back for,
We reduced
And-
1 month by a half a cycle.
okay, thank you. And my next question is, of course, I absolutely love what Ms. Accardi has suggested. That is a complex design to that. I mean, gated communities don't have that variety of flower and plants like that. So I definitely like scaling it back to something that can be manageable, something with more variety of color, can be managed far more. I drive past it every day because of where I live, and not the mulch, but the wood chip things is something that detracts from that median. I mean, it truly does. So replacing it with her suggestions is, in my opinion, an excellent idea and will enhance it. So with her recommendation and what the board has agreed to also, will that decrease the variety of plants then?
And again, I haven't seen the complete list. That hasn't been presented yet.
It will. Okay.
I can tell you that the plants that are there now, because of the variety and the types of plants, it ties our hands with using selective herbicides, because a lot of them are considered weeds in the landscape world. So we have to hand pull everything, because they didn't leave enough space between the plants to be able to spray a non-selective.
I believe some of it was too, if I remember, I don't know, maybe Ms. Cardy would like to address this too, because it is her opinion that is based in here. I don't know, Mayor, would you want her to address this?
Maybe after the question.
Okay, but that it is, the watering and stuff didn't happen for them to grow as rapidly as they needed to, so it wasn't covered. And thusly, the weeds grew up because the ground cover couldn't grow as quickly as need be. So that's the end of my questions. Thanks.
Mr. Cardy, would you mind filling out a card and maybe addressing some of the commissioners'
Thank you.
questions?
You can fill out after you speak.
Oh, yeah, you can, yeah.
Good afternoon, I'm Alicia Accardi. Thank you for allowing me to speak just for a few minutes. I don't want to go backwards too much because what's done is done. I just wanted to say a few things about the plants themselves that I think most folks don't realize. The first thing is we absolutely cannot compare the Biscayne median with the beautifully landscaped areas that we might see at a shopping center, at a Publix, at a community. Those are different plantings. Those plantings are repeatedly pulled out and replaced. They use a lot of herbicides. They use a lot of fertilizers. These are things that we don't necessarily want to apply in medians. It's a tremendous amount of maintenance to make the Publix or the Coco Plum Plaza look the way it does. These are also not native plants. So we can't really compare something beautiful and bright and constantly in a luxurious state to what was installed on the Biscayne medians, which was primarily natives. And the choices that were made back in the day were natives that are slow growing. They eventually look okay, but they're not colorful, they're weedy, and they're difficult to maintain. The reason why I can speak to this is because in my full-time job, I've worked with the architectural landscapers in Sarasota County and learned a lot from them on the plant choices that we've installed in the downtown judicial corridor. So when I made a recommendation for Julianne, for the commissioners to review, and also the other group, it was based on the fact that, yes, people want natives, but you have to be very careful in what you select. And the options that I gave were plants that I know will do well, that are drought resistant, that should spread, that will definitely add some color to that area, and are actually used in some of our parks today in the city. So I understand the difficulty in maintaining it. It is a complex area because of what was initially installed. Nothing colorful, things that are just very green and weedy looking and plain, and yet they met the criteria of being native plantings. So at this point, I encourage you to continue your research with that other group. If you need me, I'm always available. And keep my fingers crossed because I'm a Biscayne resident. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cardy. Commissioner Henry.
I have one question for Alicia, please, real quick. The plants that you put in your presentation, very colorful. How long do they bloom? Are they full bloom year-round, half a year, quarter of a year? I mean, how will they look out there on the roadway?
I believe there were 4. 2 of them are native lantanas, which almost have a year-round blooming cycle. The other thing, if you don't mind, I wanted to jump in and say there is a tremendous restriction on the Biscayne media where height is concerned, because there are so many areas, particularly when you are north of 41, that need to have very low ground cover so that people who are driving those roads are doing it safely and not being blocked by high plants. The 4 that I selected are inherently ground cover type plants, so they'll stay low. The 2 lantanas, I believe, are currently available at the Garden of the Five Senses. They bloom almost year-round. They're very good pollinators. They're, again, Florida natives. The purple puffy-looking, it's called mimosa or sensitive plant, is also ground cover. That's a little bit shorter bloom season. When it's not in bloom, it's just a very fern-like bright green. When it is in bloom, I'm going to say spring and summer, probably. And then the Gallardo, which is a colorful red, and it comes in a range of colors, is extremely hardy. Again, it is planted at the Garden of the Five Senses right now, and that's almost a year-round. I would say maybe 7 or 8 months. It's impossible to have year-round color unless you're doing repeat plantings of annuals, which are not native, not drought tolerant, not Florida plants, require a lot of maintenance and fertilizers and that kind of thing. So having color year-round is extremely difficult, but I think the 4 that I recommended have a pretty long span for it being agreeable to those who are driving by or walking by.
Thank you.
Good.
For her. I have a question for staff. When they came up with your methodology for the hours put in on Biscayne, I went and I looked at how you did that. Now, normally, most of the public work employees are scheduled from 7 to 3:30, correct? Okay, so if you had 2 employees out there working on those beds, you put down 16 hours for them working out there. There's no travel time involved. There's no break time involved. They have a half-hour lunch. So it's truly not an 8-hour day that they're putting in.
They work 8.5 hours a day, and their
Correct.
half-hour lunch is pulled out, so they work an 8-hour day.
Correct.
When I go to a job, that job is billed for that 8-hour day. They're not doing anything else that day. They're doing that job. Regardless if it takes 10 minutes to get there, an hour to get there, travel time is tied into the cost of the job.
That's what I wanted to know, what your methodology
Yes.
was,
Yes.
because I'm just checking my facts. That's
Yes,
all.
sir.
That's all I wanted to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, I think, Mr. McDowell, do you have another question? Because I do want to move on.
I understand.
So if you got, pick the
If-
best one.
If you could bring up the slide that has the pictures on it?
That's all.
I'm sorry, which one?
The slide that has the
Yes,
pictures of the
ma'am.
flowers on it, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask Ms. Accardi, based on those pictures, because it seems like those are the suggestions, which ones are more hardy, which ones are planted every year, every 6 months? Do they replant themselves? I know nothing about greenness.
Well, thank goodness I'm your greenest citizen. Not particularly green this time of year, but the one on the far left is the one
purple
called mimosa or sensitive plant.
The purple one?
Yes.
Okay.
That's something that was very successfully used in downtown Sarasota, in some landscaping projects, still is. On some of the medians, when you get right off the highway at Fruitville, that's actually one of the plants that's there.
Does it have to be replanted every season? It just regenerates itself?
Correct. These are all for perennials, because Florida, fortunately, a lot of the plants that we can use and choose are perennial in nature. They might get smaller and die back a little, but they do not die out. I would never recommend, in 100 years, planting annuals.
Thank you.
That's what is planted typically in the entrances of beautiful gated communities, at Cocoa Plum and places like that. Annuals are a terrific choice if their budget allows them to replenish them as soon as they slightly go past their prime, and they typically have contractors who come in and do that. That's not my recommendation for medians on roads. The sensitive plant, or the ground cover mimosa, doesn't bloom all year long, but when it does bloom, it has a nice long bloom season. These one just to the right of it and the one on the far right are essentially the same plant. They're called verbena. Those also are very hardy perennials in Florida, and I believe the one on the far right is the native. And then the red daisy-looking one is the Gallardo, which is a very hardy plant as well. And all of these spread very nicely.
Thank you.
And they're hardy and perennial, that.
Drought resistant, sun resistant, just excellent choices if you want to try to put something in once that starts as a relatively large plant, because you mentioned tiny plants is an issue for weeds. They can start as relatively large plants and they grow very quickly.
So if we were to plant them like now, will they grow now that we're going into our dry season? And will they flower, or is it going to look weedy until rainy season again?
I think with irrigation and a little bit of help, they'll start out fine. This is actually Florida's growing season. I know it's winter to most of us, well, not me, I'm Floridian, but to most folks, but actually with the cooler nights, it's an excellent time to put in starts. One thing I did want to mention, the verbena, which is the purple one on the far right, and then the second one in. If you drive on the Biscayne medians right now going south, the only flower that you will see, if it's still there, is a yellow verbena that is self-seeded. So a bird flew by, dropped the seed, and they're popping up all over the place. And they're the only ones doing well, and we never even planted them.
Yay, birds.
So,
Birdies, we need more of them.
so, I mean, again, these plants are available all except for the first one at the Garden of the Five Senses, and they're doing beautifully. But it all boils down to irrigation and maintenance. And initially, the maintenance is going to be there, but after that, I don't think you'll have to do much more than trim them back. Plus, they're good pollinators, which makes us good stewards, too.
How tall do they get? The four of them. If we were to go with these four, how tall do they get?
The one on the far left doesn't get much taller than this. That's maybe a foot. The Gallarda, maybe 1.5 feet. Correct me if I'm off. The verbenas, if they get the ground cover type, won't get more than 1 foot. And those are easily, all of these are easily cut down and they come back so that they can be top trimmed, if you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Not completely cut down to the ground, but neatened up, and then they'll bloom again a little while after. If I could just mention one more thing that I might not have included in that report. Florida Highway Patrol and the state has several wildflower programs where you can get seeds that sometimes they put on the medians and the sides of the highway. That's something that we might want to look into for broader areas too. The Florida state flower is something that grows very easily, very well, and maybe the city can look into engaging in that kind of a program, because those are clearly no maintenance plants with no irrigation, and they bloom.
So if we're using, if we plant these, and then we go out and use herbicides or hand pull while we're waiting for them to re-germinate themselves and fill in those blank areas, will the herbicides kill these flowers?
I can't imagine that all herbicides will, because people use these consistently in landscaping and median projects throughout the county.
I just,
Maybe they hand pull, I don't really know, but I know that if you drive through Sarasota County, some of the medians are plain grass, and some of them that really, maybe the state installed them, that require some color and beautification, have these plants. So once they're established, they should choke out the weeds, which was the intent of the original plantings. The original native plantings, the ground cover peanut, which is a little yellow flower, those were all intended to create a thick mat so it would choke out the weeds, and in their case, they just didn't do a good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor. So we're going to move forward. I believe staff's looking for a direction. If I can get,
I move to have staff follow the recommendations of Ms. Accardi and the BTSH committee, as well as implementing the program for caring for it for this year, so that next year we can review it to see if it needs to be in-house or sourced out.
second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Luke, a second by Vice Mayor. Commissioner Luke?
No, I think it's something that needs to be done. Right now, we don't know where we're at. Labor-wise, is labor intent the way it was set up, but after this gets changed over, we've got about the 50,000 or so that's already been allocated to it. So get this corrected, and we're going to have to find out where we go for that with labor then.
Yeah, All I know is that we have a mess on our hands and we got to find a solution for it. And I am very, very reluctant to move forward with any more plantings because of what happened the first time around. We have spent an exorbitant amount of money, time, and energy for this project. And it had good intentions. It just failed miserably. And I'm afraid that the cure is going to put us back to where we are now. And I'm very afraid of that. And I don't know if anybody can give us assurances that these recommendations are going to solve the problem so that we're not back here in another year. Is there any assurances? Is this?
I'm familiar with the plants that have been recommended. They grow fast and they choke the weeds. That was our problem with this project. There were very small plants put in. By the time the plants even started to grow, the weeds were taller than them. So they, my opinion, they had no chance. Okay, if we replant, we're not putting in small plants. We're going to put in good-sized plants that are going to start to choke quickly and get together. The whole point of this is to have it covered completely. You don't want to see the mulch. You want the plants to be there. The weeds can't come up if they're in the shade. So I think moving forward, you know, this is going to be a thought-out plan. We've seen what happened with what we've got now.
But another point is, we didn't have them maintained back then. We know now that we have to maintain it until, because we thought somebody else was going to be doing the job and they didn't. So I think the key to the assurance is you're going to maintain it so that they can live.
And that's kind of why we wanted to keep this in-house for this year until we get these changes and get everything at least growing the way we want.
Commissioner Emmerichs, do you have anything?
Mayor, I wasn't finished.
Oh, okay.
So the beds that are empty now, is that what is going to be the focus? Because I would hate to tear out what has been established. I want to get a better understanding of the empty beds or the beds that are failing compared to the beds that are being a success.
Well, I do want to bring us on topic. This is discussion time. It's not the questioning time, guys. So I want to
Well,
get
the
to
motion is on the floor, and
discussion.
and that's what I'm discussing, is what exactly are we going to be doing? Are we doing the empty beds? Are we doing the beds that have stuff in it? What exactly are we going to be doing? I couldn't ask these questions until I knew what the motion was going to be, Mayor.
If I may, Mayor, we will work with whoever the contractor is that we're going to purchase the plants from, along with consultation on their recommendations. We will work with Ms. Accardi. We will work with Ryan Pieper, our city arborist, and we'll also ask for the guidance from the tree council, because we want to make sure we do it right the second time around. So although the contractor would tell us, you know, you can fill this bed with these plants and, you know, come up with a plan of what their company recommends, we will run it by our internal group to make sure they agree with that. So we're not finished, you know, asking for their assistance on making this a better project. That's what our plan is.
So Mr. Speak was concerned about planting all of these hundreds of plants in a median. It sounds like that's exactly what we're going to be doing, but these plants are going to be taller and choke out the weeds?
Thousands of plants is what they planted. Not
No,
hundreds.
he's talking about what they have there now. I'm talking about a plan for the future. And we don't know if that may include some of the removal of what's already there. We don't know that yet. That we're going to have to take a look at. And we're going to have to come up with a plan for the plantings. And we've discussed this with Ms. Accardi. We may be able to fit some things in. We may have to take some things out. We'll just have to see when we get to that point.
So,
This is the last one.
Mayor,
I'm sorry, we have to move forward. We're on a schedule, and that's what we have to keep. That's as important as anything else.
well then I'll vote no. Thank you.
All right. Can we call the vote? The motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner McDowell dissenting.
You want to know the reason, please?
And I do want to know the reason.
The reason is because there's really no plan. We're going to be back to where we are now. If you're going to be putting hundreds and thousands of plants in the exact same place that you just put hundreds and thousands of plants in, they have to have time to grow. And we've already paid for maintenance twice, and it still isn't being maintained. So I have serious reservations. I say just mow it all down, plant some grass, put little pockets of flowers here and there, and be done with it. This is ridiculous.
Thank you. I know you're excited. Thank you.
And our greenest citizen nodded her head in agreement.
So we're going to move
As-
on.
This is
as
why
an
we have
option.
discussion.
Absolutely.
And this is why we have discussion, and you guys just made a motion to not do any of that.
So let's get to the
Motion
discussion.
was
way
follow
ahead
the
of time.
recommendation.
So we're going to move
of the
on to our
committee.
consent agenda. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. Do we have anybody that wants to pull anything
I
from
do.
consent? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to pull C, D, F, and G.
C, D, F, and G. Commissioner Luke?
I'll move to approve consent agenda A, B, E, H.
1 second, just before you do, Commissioner Emmerich, did you have anything you wanted to pull? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Luke, sorry.
Move to approve consent agenda A, B, E, and H.
I'll second.
All right. Getting to the motion, ready to go? Let's call the vote. Motion passes 4-0.
Mayor, to save time, since I know we're on a time schedule, I'll just speak to my questions, except for bike lanes, maybe we're going to need a...
Okay. Okay, so go ahead and speak to your questions.
Actually, I don't have any questions on, I'm going to combine C and D because it's basically the same thing. These are the vehicles. The vehicles, I'm going to read the exact same thing that I said the last time when we had the fire district meeting, just for the record. I've met with the assistant city manager and the city manager about my concerns regarding the inconsistencies of the repair history logs and the validity of the score sheets. The city manager appeared to agree with those concerns that I expressed to him and gave me some assurances that they will be getting these concerns resolved. Because I cannot be 100% sure that these vehicles need immediate replacement, I will not be voting for replacement of these vehicles.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything on any of those?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda C and D.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Luke. We have a second by Commissioner Emmerich. Anything to those motions?
No.
Okay, let us call the vote. That passes 3-1 with Commissioner McDowell dissenting. We have F, Commissioner McDowell, you pulled that?
So the reason why I pulled this is because these are the bicycle lanes, and I just need to get some questions for the record and have a conversation about some concerns that I have.
Okay. Were any of these questions the ones that were emailed that are on the backup? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Go ahead.
I don't know if does staff want to do a
Do
presentation
you want
or
to do a
anything?
presentation on it? Sorry. I can't see.
No, we don't.
It's
We're not.
consent agenda, so
Right,
no.
yeah.
No, we didn't prepare a
Okay,
presentation. for
I
this.
didn't know.
We're good with that one. So if you just have questions.
So in the CIP, this project estimates $1.3 million to construct the bike lanes. Is that a fair estimate?
For the record, Ben Newman, Public Works. Yes, the estimate was prepared with the project funding application, was approved by the MPO and the State Department of Transportation, and that was the basis of the project agreement we have with FDOT on the project. That includes design, permitting, construction, and construction engineering and inspection.
So because this estimate was given over a year ago, and there's an increase every time with construction costs. What would you say is the estimated percentage of increase that you've seen based on other projects?
Well, we tried to be conservative in the budget estimates to account for future years when those phases are coming up to be performed. So until we really have a design, it's still our best guess on the budget estimate.
Is this going to be on one side, are these bike paths only on one side of the road, or are they going to be on both?
Both sides.
Okay, because the 1.3 was for only one side, and that's the north side.
I'm not sure how you
Looking-
got that information.
And the CIP project, and from going back to the minutes from when we talked about this project back in December of 2017, it says 1.3 million is for the northbound side of the road only.
Well, that's certainly an error. We would not construct bike lanes only on one side of the road.
Probably the north side of
Probably, I
Biscayne.
was gonna say, I believe it's the north side of Biscayne as opposed to
Right.
South Biscayne,
Right.
not north side of the road. Because if I'm not
Says
mistaken, north,
1.3 is for the northbound side of the road only, and it's in multiple places about it
I
being,
understand that. What I'm saying is Biscayne, I believe, is a north-south road, so it's north portion, meaning north of where it becomes North Biscayne as opposed to South Biscayne.
and northbound is meaning going from 41 to Price Boulevard.
Yes, but I believe it still means both sides of the road. I believe it's the North Biscayne, the northbound portion, but I don't believe it was meant to be one side of the road.
Hang on while I read the CIP project, please.
North side of Biscayne, but it's
Yeah.
between your light and driving going on.
Right, no,
Yes.
so the northern part.
Well, I did not pull the exact document that was approved in December of 2017. I was going by the minutes. And I do remember them saying it was only on one side of the road.
Oh, well, and they
So,
may have. I mean, if he's saying it's going to be on both sides of the road, that's the way they're designing it.
and this is where my question comes in, is if it is on both sides of the road, but we've only allocated the 1.3 million for one side, then the cost of the construction is going to more than double. And that is something that needs to be taken into account so that we know exactly what we're voting on.
The project, the estimated cost for the project was for bicycle lanes on both sides of the road.
So that 1.3 million is for both sides of the road.
Correct.
So we know exactly what it's going to cost. I mean, give or take.
That was our best attempt at a budget estimate at the time, yes. And it was reviewed and approved by the Florida Department of Transportation during the approval process for the project.
All right. So FDOT is going to be reimbursing the city $114,000
Yes,
in basically grant money, correct?
correct, yes.
Do you know when we would be seeing that money?
We will submit quarterly reimbursement requests as the design progresses and the billing progresses.
So it's quarterly, say it again, I'm sorry, quarterly?
Yes, the reimbursements requested to FDOT for the grant money are quarterly, yes.
So is that quarterly for the design only, or quarterly throughout the entire project?
Throughout the entire project.
And all they're giving us is the $114,000 in grant money for the entire project?
I'm sorry, repeat the number again?
114,000 for the entire project?
No, for the design phase. For
Okay,
the design and
that's-
permitting phase.
Not what, are we
The
getting
project
any?
agreement that you approved back, I guess it was December of last year, included all phases of the project, and that 114,000 was for the design and permitting phase only.
So are we going to get any additional money for construction of the project?
Yes, we are, and that's included in the project agreement you approved back in December of last year.
Could you tell me how much that amount is for the construction part of it?
It's the total.
The LAP agreement lists the total cost of the project is roughly $1,337,000.
Correct, yes.
Correct.
The total cost of the project is 1.3 million.
The total grant amount, yes, of the project and the agreement with FDOT, and that includes all phases of the project: design, permitting, construction, and construction engineering and inspection.
So when I asked staff the question of how much are we getting in grant money, I was told $114,000 total.
That's strictly for the design phase, which is the agreement that you have in front of you now for approval, yes.
So the 1.3 that's in the CIP is going to come from grants as the project continues.
That's the total grant amount for the project, yes. And as the project continues, as we complete the design phase and then move into the construction phase, the rest of the grant money will be available for construction and construction engineering and inspection, yes.
So the $1.3 million that is in the CIP for construction
That's
is
for the-
not 100% of the construction cost for the project. That's just what FDOT is giving us.
The $1,337,000 and so dollars are the entire award of grant money from FDOT for the project, and that includes all phases of the project.
Design and construction phases of the project.
The project, maybe this will help you a little bit. Exhibit B of the LAP agreement, which is one of the attachments there, shows the source of funds broken down by phase. It's got on it the design phase, which is where the $114,000 number comes from, and it says 100% of the money comes from federal funds. Then it has the construction phase listed as $1,052,121. Then the next construction, engineering, and inspection amount is $171,130. Those all total to the $1.3 million. Not sure if that helps you at all.
Thank you so much. Can I ask one more? So if FDOT is giving us 1.3 million for the total project, including the design and the construction, what is your best guess estimate that is going to come out of the taxpayers' hands? I need an estimate, guys.
We have not done an estimate of the project since the project was submitted for approval through the MPO process. I have not performed an estimate of the project since then. Once we proceed with design and get all of the different elements of the project quantified and identified, then we will have a much better idea of the costing of the construction phase.
So there's no, just to clarify, you
Yes.
have no way of knowing how much the city of Northport is going to be contributing to this entire project. All you know is what FDOT is contributing.
The plan was for FDOT to pay for 100% of this.
Up to the amount.
That amount.
And obviously, it's up to the $1.3 million, because that's was the estimate when this was submitted to FDOT. But it's not anticipated that there was a local match. It was 100% federally funded, which that Exhibit B that I was pointing to shows you, it would show you if there was an anticipated local match, and it shows 0 for that amount, and that's why it's blank. Now, obviously, if when the project comes in, costs skyrocket or something, we'll have to make the decision of if there a local match or not. But right when it was submitted, it was anticipated FDOT was paying for 100% of this.
So if the projected estimate comes in at 2.3 million, it's possible we're going to have to pay the other $1 million.
If we decide to move forward with the project, yes.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Luke?
And also,
Oh, go ahead,
just let me
sorry.
say this for your information. On the design agreement you have before you now, the actual cost negotiated, the actual fee negotiated with the consultant is approximately $10,000 over the amount that FDOT had allocated for the design. So that money, yes, is coming out of the city of Northport's budget, just strictly for this design and permitting phase.
Will we see the design to be able to make a decision to proceed as a commission body, to either proceed or to nix the project after the design phase?
Certainly, we would be bringing the
construction contract will come
Design.
before you all.
Yes.
Okay,
And that would have the design with, so first, we'd do the design. But before we can proceed with construction, it would be another contract that would have to come before you all.
so the design is going to give us an estimate
Oh, yes.
of the construction costs.
Yes, ma'am.
So maybe it would be wiser to let us know what the estimate of of construction costs are prior to going and spending all the time and energy and resources for an RFP if we find out we can't afford to do this.
Well, but if it comes back and is over the amount, we wouldn't be able to move forward with issuing the solicitation for the construction contract until we had money budgeted for it, which requires you all to do something.
Thank you.
Commissioner Luke, did you have something?
I just want to move to approve consent agenda F.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Luke to approve consent agenda F with a second by Vice Mayor. Anything to those?
Yeah, I like this project. I mean, this has been something that's been on the books for a couple of years, it's been being discussed, falls into the complete streets type of thing that we're trying to bring forward into the city. So I'm behind this project, and I appreciate that 100% grant. I don't anticipate the city having to do much, if anything at all, but the value that it brings to it, just like that strip going down 41, enhances the quality of life for our city. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, I'm nothing to say, thank you.
Take the vote.
Appreciate the conversation.
That motion was approved, 4-0. Moving on to consent agenda item G. Yours?
Yeah, I just have, actually, these are, I hope, simple questions. It's my understanding from when I was looking at the contract, there's a, and I'm going to call it a penalty, and I know that's not the correct word of the day, but of $1,665 per day if they don't meet contract deadline. Is that correct?
Yes, liquidated damages.
What is it called?
It's called liquidated damages.
Yeah, I like penalty better, but okay. Tomato, same thing. So in the contract, it said that there's a charge for $18,000 for traffic control. And I am wondering if we can remove that $18,000 because the contractor will be doing traffic control. Is that something our VS, because to me, traffic control is putting up the little sign saying, hey, road closed ahead, or right lane closed ahead, or having a flag man out there, or directing traffic around a work area. Can we have our VSAs or staff out there?
For the record, Jerry Traversal, Engineering Division Manager, Public Works. For that, our VSAs, for doing that, now you're shifting any liability for any problem that happens in the construction toward the city, number one. Number two, we don't have all the equipment, the barricades, the cones, all that. Then we will have to contract and go through the process of getting that equipment. The contractor, when we put it in the contract, it's the contractor responsibility to get all the equipment needed and the cones and the flaggers. And the key here is liability, because MOT is one of the most contested in court things. Like somebody end up in a ditch and say, well, your flagger flagged me away for some reason. Cases that I've seen in the past. So for $18,000, I think that the peace of mind that it will get us is insurmountable.
I didn't realize that liability would shift, because I thought since this is still a city project, that liability is still on the city. So thank you for that explanation. Do you know when the project is expected to start? Last question, Mayor.
On approval of this construction contract by the commission, then we will schedule a pre-construction meeting with the contractor to set the, he will submit a baseline schedule for us to review and approve. So no, at this time I do not know, but we will try to get we will schedule the pre-construction meeting as quickly as we can. We also want to have a neighborhood meeting with particularly the residents along the project limits, to inform them of the project status and to to go over any issues or concerns they may have during the construction of the project, because their access will be limited from time to time. with
That's
the
great,
constructions.
thank you.
Thank you for that answer.
Get a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda G.
I'll second that.
Made by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor McDowell. Anything to the motions?
It's a long time coming on these sidewalks in that area, and I'm sure the residents are going to be thrilled that they're going to have safe passage from Critterton down to the school. So thank you for that.
Call the vote. Motion passes 4-0. We don't have any public comment. And we're going to move, if you guys don't mind, Commission Communications, Administrative and Legal Reports towards the regular meeting. So this meeting is adjourned. Next is solid waste. It's not giving me a join button. Oh, there it is.
Join one for a second. No, that's road and drainage.
I'm good. Refresh it.
I'm doing it.
Okay. Ms. Hill, whenever you're ready. You ready? I'd like to call this Solid Waste District Governing Body meeting to order. We said the pledge during our other meeting. Today's Tuesday, November 27th. It is exactly 5:16 p.m. And we're in the city chambers. We have present Commissioner Luke, Vice Mayor McDowell, Mayor Hanks, Commissioner Emrich, City Attorney Slayton, City Manager Lear. Have our Police Chief Garrison back there, and staff is always present. And we have Recording Secretary, Ms. Hale. Can I get an approval of the agenda, please?
I can approve I'll make a motion to not only approve the agenda, but to approve the consent agenda as presented and just kill it all at one turn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh, no, surprised. Anything to the motion?
No.
Let's get moving. All right.
I did.
I'm getting it.
There you go. Good
Let's
job.
call the vote.
She wasn't expecting to do it all at one time.
That motion passes 4-0. No public comment. We're gonna- oh,
You can't do it all at once. You just doesn't work with.
all right.
Okay?
Okay, so tell us what.
Do you need the motion pressed again to?
Okay.
Actually,
So
the
we
motion
can-
was to approve the agenda as presented and to
Approve the consent.
approve the consent all at the same time.
I think for her software.
Oh, you can't do it that way?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
I apologize. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
General business right now.
I don't have a general
You don't
business.
have
in
general
here.
business?
We're moving to approve everything.
Yep, yeah, there's no general business in the
Uh,
solid waste.
3A and 3B. You need those separate, do you?
Uh-oh, here comes the boss.
I think we started the 12-6 meeting in the software instead of the 11-27 solid waste meeting.
Oh, I see it now, yeah.
Oh. Oh, yeah, the 12.
I see it now.
City Attorney, we need to back out of everything and redo it under the proper one, or are we good just making another motion?
Software issue.
Yeah, it just depends on what's on the record.
We voted to approve the entire deal.
All in one motion. We approve the agenda and we approve the consent agenda all at one time.
That's fine. We can do it verbally over the DCR. You can all voice vote and we'll fix it tomorrow.
So we'll call the voice vote then.
Okay. To approve the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Voice
All in
vote,
favor,
yes?
say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And that passes 4-0.
I believe the issue is there's a different.
There's no public
solid
comment.
waste
We're gonna
bid
push-
going
what?
For her.
Where you at that? So the last meeting, I wanted to get one announcement is, for everybody here, there's going to be the music as you all had directed a while ago. We have our first event.
15 minutes.
So they'll be starting out in the lobby of the second floor. There'll be the Northport High School National Music Honor Society. Will be performing from 5:30 to 6 in the lobby right out here.
Excellent. Can't wait to hear it.
Perfect.
In the lobby of second floor instead of outside?
That's what it says. They'll be in the lobby on the second floor.
Okay, great.
'Cause
Because I
earlier it
saw
said
one
outside.
communication that said
The email that I
outside.
got, yeah.
We're going to push back commission communications, legal reports, and adjournment, and give the city manager special leeway. Just
Sorry.
kidding. This meeting is adjourned.
Just follow the music. We'll find it somewhere.
I saw that hammer raised
What happened is meeting of the sixth came up instead of.
Don't get underneath it. Don't get underneath it.